The palace of the alien emperor was a place where everyone walked with pride, fear, or power, but no one ever looked down at the quiet human man who cleaned the long crystal floors every morning. His name was Evan, a single father who had come to this strange world after losing everything on Earth. He worked silently, moved slowly, and spoke only when someone spoke to him first. To the royal guards, he was invisible. To the high healers, he was unimportant. To the emperor's court, he was just the human janitor. But Evan never complained. He needed the job, he needed the pay, and he needed to survive for the sake of his little daughter waiting in a small room outside the city. Every day he cleaned the palace with soft steps, careful hands, and a mind full of quiet thoughts. He always noticed things others ignored: small cracks, tiny sounds, strange smells. He had the heart of a father and the eyes of a man who learned to observe life in silence. On this day, the palace felt different. The air was heavy, the halls were tense, and royal servants whispered in fear. Evan felt something was wrong even before the first alarm rang. While sweeping near the grand nursery doors, he heard a weak cry so soft it almost disappeared in the noise of the palace machines. It did not sound like a normal baby's cry. It sounded tired, scared, fading. Evan paused. He looked at the nursery door. He wanted to ask someone what was happening, but no one would answer a human janitor. So he stayed quiet and kept sweeping, but his eyes were fixed on the door as nurses rushed in and out with panic on their faces. Inside the nursery, the emperor's newborn triplets, 3 tiny heirs to the greatest alien empire, were fighting for their lives. No one told Evan, but he felt it. He felt danger in the air, like a storm hidden behind silence. Suddenly, a group of royal healers ran past him. Their voices were sharp, full of fear. "They are getting weaker." One healer shouted, "Nothing is working." Another cried, "The emperor will break if they do not survive." A third whispered. Evan stopped sweeping. His heart began to race. He had never seen healers panic like this. He took a slow step toward the nursery door, trying to listen. He heard the sound of machines beeping fast, nurses crying softly, and the emperor shouting orders. Then he heard something else, something only he noticed. The air near the nursery felt colder, sharper, almost painful to breathe. He exhaled slowly and realized the air smelled wrong. Not dirty, not rotten, but strange. Like heavy metal dust mixed with a chemical he remembered from Earth. Evan's hand tightened on his broom. He had felt this smell before years ago when his daughter got sick because of a broken air purifier in their old home. The memory hit him hard, like a punch to the chest. His daughter had almost died that day. Only quick action saved her. And now that same smell was here, near newborn babies who could not protect themselves. His breathing shook. Should he speak? Should he try to warn someone? But who would listen to a janitor? Who would let a human into the emperor's nursery? He took one step forward. A guard blocked him instantly. "You! Back to work!" The guard ordered. Evan opened his mouth, but no words came. Fear and doubt pressed on his chest. The palace did not tolerate mistakes. A human who spoke too much could lose his job or worse. He lowered his head and stepped back, but inside, he was not calm. He felt something was deeply wrong. Something connected to the smell, the air, the weakness in the baby's cries. As he continued his cleaning, he saw the emperor pass by, his strong face broken, his eyes full of pain. Evan felt a sharp ache in his heart. He knew that pain. It was the pain of a parent watching a child sink toward death. And in that moment, Evan realized something simple but powerful. If no one else saw what he saw, then the triplets were truly alone. He looked again at the nursery door, his hands shaking. No one noticed him. No one cared. He was just the human janitor, but inside him, a small fire started to grow. A fire that whispered, "If you do nothing, they will die." Evan stood near the far end of the hallway, pretending to clean the same corner again and again, but his eyes never left the nursery door. The alarms had stopped, yet the palace still felt like a wounded creature holding its breath. Servants whispered. Guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Healers moved with shaking hands. Something terrible was happening inside that room, something that even the most powerful alien medicine could not fight. Soon, the Emperor's royal advisor stepped out of the nursery. His face looked pale and lost. The palace lights reflected off his silver robes, but today he seemed smaller, older, and broken. Evan watched him wipe his face with trembling fingers before speaking to a group of healers. They are fading, the advisor whispered. Hours, maybe less. A heavy silence spread. Even the guards lowered their heads. Evan felt a cold weight drop inside his chest. He was only a janitor, but he knew what fading meant. It was the last stage before death. He could almost imagine the triplets small, fragile, barely breathing, just like his daughter had once been. Another healer spoke in fear. We tried every medicine. Nothing is working. Their lungs are reacting to something. But we cannot understand what. Their bodies reject all treatment. A nurse cried softly. Their hearts are slowing. Evan closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered that night years ago when he carried his daughter in his arms, running through the streets of Earth, screaming for help. Her breath had been thin. Her lips had turned blue. And the smell, yes, that strange sharp metal smell, was the same smell drifting through the palace air now. He opened his eyes again. The healers continued their desperate conversation. But Evan heard only parts of it. Maybe a rare infection. No, the tests are clean. Could be a genetic weakness. Impossible. They are royal born. Maybe a curse. Evan's eyebrows rose. A curse? They were so lost they were guessing blindly. Meanwhile, the tiny triplets were slipping away. A new group of healers rushed into the nursery, carrying glowing equipment. Their faces were tense, full of frustration. One of them stopped near the door and leaned forward with his hands on his knees. Breathing hard. It is like the babies are breathing poison, he said quietly. Those words struck Evan like thunder. He stepped closer before he realized it, his heart racing. Poison? Yes, that was exactly what he felt in the air. Not a normal poison, something mixed with dust, metal, and chemical particles. Something that a newborn body could not survive. But the palace air should be perfect. Why would poison be here? He looked up carefully and noticed something that everyone else ignored. A tiny shimmer of dust falling from the vents, above the nursery door. The dust was faint, almost invisible, but Evan saw it because he noticed small things. He always noticed small things. He took a slow breath. The sharp smell stung his nose again. He wanted to speak. He wanted to shout. But a janitor shouting in the palace was like a bird screaming in a storm. No one would listen as he struggled with fear. A group of soldiers marched past him. Their faces were angry. One of the vent engineers is missing, one soldier said. Missing? Another replied. Why would an engineer disappear today? Maybe he was involved, a third whispered. Evan's eyes widened. Involved? Did someone do this on purpose? A hidden crime? A secret plan to destroy the Emperor's heirs? The thought made his stomach twist. Inside the nursery, the Emperor could be heard shouting again. His voice shook the hall. Save them. I do not care what you need, just save them. Evan felt tears in his eyes. It was the cry of a desperate father. The cry he once had made himself. He could not stay silent anymore. He moved toward the nursery door again, slow but determined. He stopped when he reached the royal guards. They stared at him with suspicion, like wolves watching the stranger near their den. One guard stepped forward. You again? What do you want? Evan swallowed hard. Sir, the air. Something is wrong with the air. The guard frowned. What? The smell, Evan whispered. I know that smell. My daughter once got sick from the same thing. It comes from a broken purifier. The guard looked annoyed. You are a janitor, not a healer. Evan lowered his head but spoke again, even softer. Please, if the purifier is broken, the babies, they cannot survive. For a moment, the guard hesitated. Doubt flickered in his eyes. But before he could answer, a voice echoed across the hall. Let him speak. Everyone froze. The Emperor was standing at the nursery entrance, his eyes red, his breath shaking. He stared at Evan with a mix of pain and curiosity. A human janitor, the Emperor said slowly. Why do you think you know what my healers do not? Evan raised his head. His voice was soft, honest, trembling. Because, Your Majesty, I have seen a child dying the same way before, and I refuse to watch it happen again. The hall fell silent. The Emperor stepped closer. Then show me, he said, and with that, the fate of the Empire shifted. The moment the Emperor said, then show me, the entire hallway froze. Every healer, every guard, every servant looked at Evan like he had just stepped into a world where he did not belong. A human janitor, standing before the ruler of the largest alien empire. And the ruler was listening to him. Evan's heart pounded so loudly he felt it in his throat, but he stepped forward with quiet bravery. The Emperor watched him closely, eyes full of pain but also a spark of something new hope. Thin but alive. Speak, the Emperor ordered. Evan took a slow breath. Your Majesty, the air near the nursery is wrong. The smell is sharp, metallic. This only happens when a purifier breaks. A healer scoffed loudly. Impossible. Our purifiers are the most advanced in the galaxy. Evan looked down, then looked up again with steady eyes. Advanced machines can still break. Another healer whispered to the Emperor. Your Majesty, allowing a human to interfere is dangerous. If he is wrong, the Emperor raised his hand, and silence fell instantly. I do not care if he is human, the Emperor said, voice firm. My children are dying. Their breaths weaken every moment. If this man knows something, we will listen. Evan felt a strange warmth in his chest. Someone was finally hearing him. The Emperor pointed at the nursery door. Come, a guard hesitated. Your Majesty, the janitor cannot enter the royal nursery. The Emperor's voice became cold. Then he enters as my direct order. Move. The guard stepped aside immediately. Evan walked behind the Emperor, his legs shaking but his mind focused. This was not about pride. This was not about fear. This was about 3 tiny lives that needed clean air to survive. Inside the nursery, the room felt heavy. 3 small cradles floated in glowing pods. The alien triplets lay inside, their bodies wrapped in soft layers of royal fabric. Their skin had turned pale blue, their breathing shallow. Machines beeped in slow, painful rhythm. Evan's heart tightened. They looked so small, so weak. Just like his daughter had looked long ago. A nurse wiped tears from her eyes. Your Majesty, they are slipping again. The Emperor clenched his fists. He leaned over the cradles, touching the glass gently. My little stars, stay with me. Evan stepped close, not too close, just enough to breathe the air around the cradles. The sharp smell was stronger here. His eyes watered. His throat stung. Yes, this was exactly what he feared. He turned to the Emperor. Your Majesty, may I test something? A healer snapped. He will contaminate the room. But the Emperor did not look at the healer. His eyes stayed locked on Evan's face. What do you need? The Emperor asked. Evan pointed to the wall vents above the nursery. A ladder, and permission to check the air system. The healers gasped. A human-touching palace technology. Unthinkable, but the Emperor did not hesitate. Bring a ladder. Within seconds, guards fetched one. Evan climbed slowly, every movement watched by dozens of eyes. He pressed his hand near the vent. Warm air hit his skin. Too warm, too heavy. And then he saw fine silver dust clinging to the vent edges, almost invisible unless someone looked very carefully. His breath caught. This was not natural. This was not dust from the palace. This was something added. A poison. He climbed down, his face pale. Well? The Emperor demanded. Evan pointed upward. There is metal dust in the vents. It is mixing with the air. The babies, they cannot breathe this. They are too young. Their lungs are not ready for this kind of particle. A sudden panic spread through the nursery. Nurses covered their mouths. Healers checked equipment again. Guards looked at one another with fear. The Emperor stepped closer to Evan, voice low and deadly. Are you saying this is an attack? Sabotage? Evan swallowed. I cannot be sure. But someone had to open the vent to do this. The Emperor's eyes burned like fire. Find the engineer who disappeared. Bring him to me. Guards stormed out of the nursery. The Emperor turned back to Evan. If you are right, then the poison entering this room is killing my children. Evan nodded softly. Yes, Your Majesty. The Emperor gripped Evan's shoulder with a desperate hand. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to save them. Evan felt the weight of the entire empire on his shoulders. He was just a janitor. He had no power, no title, no special training, but he had something no one else in this palace had, a father's instinct. First, Evan said quietly, we must stop the poison at the source. If we clean the air, the babies have a chance. The Emperor nodded slowly, his eyes trembling with hope. Then go, the Emperor whispered. Find the source. You have my command. And with those words, the human janitor once invisible became the Empire's last hope. Evan walked out of the nursery with the Emperor's command echoing in his ears. The palace halls were wide and shining, but to him they now felt like a maze filled with danger. Every second mattered. Every breath the triplets took was weaker than the last. He could still hear their faint cries in his mind, and it made his heart tighten with fear. The guards escorted him through the palace, but even they did not hide their confusion. A human janitor leading them? A human telling them the children of the Emperor were dying because of poison in the air? It was something none of them had ever imagined. Yet they followed, because the Emperor himself had ordered it. Evan stopped near a junction where several air ducts met high above the walls. He looked up and studied the vent structure. To the guards, it looked simple, just metal pipes and glowing energy lines, but Evan saw details they never noticed. He saw a tiny vibration in the left duct. He saw dust gathering where it should not gather. He saw heat waves rising too quickly. He touched the wall gently. This duct. It is carrying bad air to the nursery. One guard frowned. How can you tell? Evan gave a small, tired smile. I have fixed many broken machines in my life. When my daughter was sick, our purifier kept failing. I learned everything about these systems because I had no one else to help me. The guard's expression softened for a moment. Evan's voice had the quiet pain of a man who had lived through fear. No, parents should feel. He climbed another ladder they brought to him. His fingers moved confidently, even though the palace technology was far more advanced than anything he used on Earth. But machines were still machines. They followed rules. They gave clues. He unscrewed a small plate and felt warm air blow directly onto his face. He coughed, eyes watering. The guard stepped forward. Are you all right? Evan nodded. Yes. But this smell is stronger. The poison is coming from deeper inside. He looked inside the duct and saw something strange, a small device stuck inside the air pipe. It glowed faintly, releasing dust into the airflow. It was not part of the palace system. Someone had attached it secretly. Evan's heart dropped. This was not an accident. Someone wanted those babies dead. He climbed down quickly. There is a foreign device in the duct. It is releasing metal dust. The guards looked shocked. Who would dare? But Evan raised a hand. We cannot waste time thinking. We must remove it. A guard shouted an order, and more soldiers arrived. They carefully removed the device from the duct and placed it in a sealed case. As soon as the device was gone, the air flowing through the hall felt cleaner, cooler, lighter, but Evan was not relieved yet. We must check the purifier below. This poison started somewhere. The guards led him to the main purifier room deep inside the palace. It was a huge chamber filled with humming machines, blue lights, and energy vents. This was the heart of the palace, the place that made sure every life inside breathed safe air. Evan knew exactly where to look. He went straight to the purifier marked with a symbol matching the nursery's vent system. He knelt beside it, touching the machine with gentle fingers. It was warm. Too warm. He opened a side panel. Inside, wires were cut. Filters were removed. A small container of silver dust was wired into the system. This was the true origin of the poison. One of the guards cursed under his breath. This is treason. Pure treason. Evan stared at the broken purifier, feeling a chill run through him. Someone not only wanted the triplets dead, they wanted the Empire to suffer. He stood up slowly. We must fix this now. If clean air reaches the nursery in time, the babies can still breathe on their own. A guard asked, Can you repair it? Evan nodded without hesitation. Yes, if I hurry. He gathered tools from a box nearby. His hands moved with surprising skill, hands shaped by years of repairing things for his daughter, fixing old machines for neighbors, or solving problems simply because no one else cared enough to help. The guards watched in silence as he worked. Every twist of a screw, every wire he reconnected, every piece he cleaned showed a different version of Evan, one they never saw before. Not a janitor, not a low-class human, a man with hidden knowledge, a man with experience, a man with purpose. Finally, he closed the panel and pressed the reset switch. The purifier hummed, then glowed, then released a smooth wave of pure, clean air. Evan exhaled in relief. It is working. The guards stared at him with new respect. One whispered, Maybe the Emperor was right to trust him. Evan wiped sweat from his forehead. Come, the triplets need this air now. He stood up, heart racing, not from fear, but from hope. For the first time, he felt he truly had a chance to save them. Evan did not wait for anyone to speak. The moment the purifier glowed with clean air, he turned and ran. His steps echoed across the metal floor as guards rushed behind him. Every second mattered. Every heartbeat counted. The triplets were still, breathing poisoned air, still fading, still fighting for life that grew weaker with every passing moment. He had to get the air restored to them before their tiny lungs stopped completely. The palace hallways seemed longer now, twisting like endless tunnels. Evan's legs burned, but he pushed himself harder. He had run like this once before, carrying his daughter, begging for help, praying she would not stop breathing in his arms. That memory fueled his steps now. He would not let 3 more children face the same fate. A guard shouted from behind, Slow down. You will fall. But Evan shook his head. No time. As he turned a corner, the air in the halls shifted. The cleaner air from the repaired purifier started spreading, cool and gentle. Evan breathed it in and felt a spark of hope. But hope was not enough. They had to open the vents near the nursery to let the clean air flow in, faster. He reached the junction above the nursery and pointed at the vents. Open these, he ordered. The guards did not question him now. They climbed ladders, pulled levers, and unlocked clamps. Evan opened the main valve with shaking hands. A soft rush of fresh air burst through the system. Evan exhaled in relief, but something was wrong. A sudden alarm blared. The guard nearest the control panel shouted. The poison device triggered a lock. The airflow to the nursery is blocked. Evan's eyes widened. What? The system sealed its self-security protocol. It thinks the nursery is under attack. Evan looked toward the hallway leading to the nursery. That means the babies are still breathing poisoned air. His stomach twisted. He had fixed the purifier, but the air could not reach the triplets. The system would take 20 minutes to reset on its own. 20 minutes. The triplets did not have 20 minutes. We need to override it manually, Evan said. The guards looked at each other nervously. Only engineers know how. Evan stepped forward. Then let me try. He opened the control panel. Wires, circuits, and glowing nodes blinked inside. The system was far more advanced than anything he had repaired before, but he understood the logic. He had learned to fix machines by feeling them, listening to their rhythm, understanding their needs. Machines were like people. They broke when ignored. They healed when tended with care. His fingers flew across the wires. He joined circuits, bypassed sensors, and connected 2 emergency lines. A spark flashed, but he did not stop. His hands shook, sweat rolled down his forehead, and fear battled with determination inside his chest. A guard stepped closer. Will it work? I think so, Evan whispered. He pulled the final lever. Nothing happened. The guard cursed under his breath. It failed. Wait, Evan said softly. The vents above them rattled. A low hum filled the hallway. Then dash, whoosh, a powerful stream of clean air shot through the ducts toward the nursery. Evan almost collapsed in relief. It worked. He whispered, the babies will breathe clean air now. The guards stared at him with awe. This man, the one they once ignored, had just outsmarted a palace security system, but Evan did not stand still. He sprinted toward the nursery again. When they reached the royal door, they heard coughing inside, not the weak dying coughs from before, but sudden sharp coughs, like the baby's lungs were trying to push out the poison. A healer opened the door, panic in her eyes. What did you do? The babies. Evan stepped inside before she finished. The Emperor was bent over the cradles, his hands shaking. The triplets' tiny bodies trembled, their breaths fast and uneven. They were fighting, forcing out the poisoned air. Evan moved. Closer, Your Majesty, this is good. The clean air is working. Their bodies are trying to recover. The Emperor looked up, eyes glassy. Will they survive? Evan did not lie. They can. But we must help them breathe easier. Their lungs are weak. They need time. A nurse cried as she watched the color slowly return to one baby's skin. Another baby's fingers twitched, trying to grasp the air. The Emperor placed a trembling hand on Evan's shoulder. You brought them hope when we had none. Evan felt tears sting his eyes, but he wiped them away quickly. This was not the time to break. We are not finished yet, he said softly. The poison is leaving their bodies, but they are still very weak. He looked around the room. Now, we wait, and we pray their strength returns. The Emperor nodded slowly. Then we wait together. And for the first time in palace history, a human janitor stood at the Emperor's side, not as a servant, but as the man who gave the triplets a fighting chance to live. The nursery was quiet, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of silence where everyone held their breath and waited for a sign, a small movement, a soft cry, anything that meant the triplets were still fighting. The Emperor stood beside their cradles, refusing to move even an inch away. Evan stayed behind him, watching each tiny breath with fear and hope mixing inside his chest. Slowly, the baby's skin began to return to a faint, healthy color. Their chests rose a little deeper. Their hands twitched weakly. It was not a recovery, but it was not death either. A healer whispered, "They are stabilizing." The Emperor closed his eyes, whispering a silent prayer. "Do not leave me, not yet." Evan stepped back, letting the royal family have their moment, but his mind was not calm. Something kept bothering him. The foreign device in the air duct, the broken purifier, the missing engineer. None of it felt random. Someone inside the palace had planned this attack carefully. A guard rushed into the nursery, bowing fast. "Your Majesty, we found the missing engineer." The Emperor turned sharply. "Bring him." 2 soldiers dragged a frightened alien engineer into the nursery. His hands were shaking. His clothes were dirty. His eyes darted everywhere except toward the Emperor. The Emperor's voice was cold. "Where were you?" I was hiding, Your Majesty," the engineer stammered. "Hiding? From what?" The engineer swallowed hard. "From them." Evan stepped forward slightly. "Them?" The engineer's voice cracked. "I did not poison the air. I only repaired the ducts earlier today. But I saw someone near the purifier chamber. Someone I should not have seen." The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Who?" The engineer hesitated. Sweat rolled down his temples. "Speak." The Emperor roared. "The royal counselor." The engineer whispered. "He was there." Everyone in the room froze. The royal counselor was one of the most powerful beings in the empire, trusted with the Emperor's secrets, respected by soldiers, feared by enemies. A healer gasped. "Impossible. He has served the royal family for years." Evan shook his head slowly. "Trust can hide danger." The Emperor clenched his fists, fury burning in his eyes. "Why would he try to kill my children?" The engineer sobbed. "Your Majesty, I do not know. When he saw me, he warned me to stay silent. I ran, I hid. I was afraid." The guards stepped closer, ready to seize him, but the Emperor lifted a hand. "If you are lying, you will suffer. But if you speak the truth, you may have saved your life." The engineer nodded rapidly. I speak the truth, Your Majesty." The Emperor turned to his guards. "Find the counselor, now." The guards rushed out, leaving everyone else stunned. Evan watched the Emperor, seeing the storm of grief and anger building inside him. This man, who ruled countless worlds, could not protect his own children from betrayal inside his own walls. Nurse suddenly called out, "Your Majesty!" "Look!" Everyone turned. One of the triplets, the smallest one, opened her tiny eyes. They were weak, unfocused, but alive. The Emperor fell to his knees beside her cradle, touching the glass gently. "My little star," he whispered, voice breaking. Evan felt tears forming in his own eyes. The sight of a father so powerful and yet so fragile made his heart ache. But the moment of hope lasted only a few seconds. Another guard rushed into the room. "Your Majesty, we found the counselor's chamber. It is empty. He is gone." Gone. Vanished. A traitor escaping inside the Emperor's own palace. The Emperor stood slowly. "He tried to kill my children, and now he runs. This means he did not act alone." A chill swept through the room. Evan stepped forward quietly. "Your Majesty." The purifier was rewired very carefully. That kind of work takes time, and someone had to distract the healers. The Emperor nodded grimly. "You are right. This was not one man's crime. This was a plan to end my bloodline." Evan looked at the sleeping triplets. Their breaths were still soft and weak, proof that danger had almost succeeded. The Emperor turned to Evan. "You saw what others ignored. You understood what others feared, and you saved them. Now I ask you for one more thing." Evan bowed his head. "Anything, Your Majesty." The Emperor's voice softened, but it carried the weight of 1,000 worlds. "Help me uncover the truth. Help me protect my children." Evan lifted his eyes. He was just a human janitor, a man who cleaned floors, a man no one noticed yesterday. But now, he was the one the Emperor was trusting with the future of his heirs. He nodded slowly. I will help you until the danger is gone. The Emperor placed a hand on his shoulder. Then tonight we begin. And with that, the Empire shifted again, this time not because of poison, but because of the human who refused to stay silent. The palace felt different as night fell. The lights were dim, the halls were guarded tightly, and whispers moved like shadows through the air. Everyone knew there was a traitor somewhere inside. Everyone knew the Emperor's children were still fighting for life. And everyone knew one strange truth. A human janitor had done what the greatest healers could not. Evan stood outside the nursery again, his clothes dusty from running through air ducts, his hands still trembling from repairing machines far beyond human design. He was tired, but he would not rest. Not until the triplets were safe. Not until the Emperor knew the full truth. Inside the nursery, the healers worked silently. Clean air filled the room now, cool and fresh. The triplets' breathing had become slow but steady. Their tiny chests no longer shook. Their color had returned. It felt like watching 3 small candles that almost died, but found flame again. Evan stepped inside the nursery slowly. The Emperor stood beside the cradles, eyes fixed on his children, refusing to blink for even a second. He looked at Evan with calm but heavy eyes. You came, Evan nodded. I needed to see how they are. The Emperor's voice softened. Because of you, they still breathe. No one in the room spoke for several seconds. The weight of those words settled around them. A healer stepped closer, checking the monitors. Your Majesty. Their lungs are clearing faster than expected. Another healer gasped softly. Look, the smallest one. Her heartbeat is strong again. The Emperor placed both hands on the cradle, tears shining in his eyes. My children, my little stars, you fought. Evan felt his throat tighten. He had seen his own daughter fight for breath once. He knew this pain. He knew this relief. He wiped his eyes quietly, hoping no one noticed, but the Emperor did notice. You understand this feeling, he said softly. Evan nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. I once thought I would lose my daughter too. The Emperor placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. Then you understand why I will never forget what you have done. Before Evan could speak, the doors burst open. Guards entered, carrying someone in chains. It was the royal counselor, the traitor. His face was twisted with fear and anger. The Emperor's eyes turned cold. You tried to end my bloodline. The counselor spat on the floor. Your children are weak. The Empire needs stronger heirs. Gasps filled the room. Evan stepped forward. Without thinking, they are not weak. They are newborn. They were poisoned. You almost killed them for your own greed. The counselor glared at him. And you, nothing but a janitor, ruined everything. The Emperor's voice thundered. That janitor saved more than you ever could. The counselor's expression twisted for a moment. Then he laughed weakly. This human? You trust him? The Emperor looked at Evan with pride. He is the only one who saw the truth when all of you were blind. At that moment, a small sound broke the tension. A soft cry. The smallest triplet moved again. Her tiny fingers curled, reaching upward as if calling for someone. The Emperor leaned over and gently lifted her into his arms. The baby blinked slowly, then rested her head against her father's chest. A healer whispered, She responds to him. Another healer cried softly, They all will survive, Your Majesty. The danger is gone. Evan felt warmth spread through his chest. He had helped save 3 lives, 3 futures, 3 little stars of the Empire. The Emperor turned toward him, holding his daughter close. His voice was thick with emotion. Evan, step forward. Evan did. You gave my children life. You gave my heart hope. From this day forward, you are no longer a janitor. Gasps filled the room. The Emperor continued, You will be honored as protector of the royal heirs, a title older than the Empire itself. Evan blinked in disbelief. Your Majesty. I am just a man. No, the Emperor said gently. You are the man who saved my family. He lifted the baby slightly. Even she knows it. The tiny alien girl reached a trembling hand toward Evan's face, as if recognizing him not as a stranger, but as someone who had fought for her before she even understood the world. Evan smiled softly, tears forming once again. The Emperor spoke loudly so all could hear. Let it be known across the stars. A human saved the future of this empire. A guard announced the words into the palace halls. Healer bowed deeply to Evan. Even the counselor looked stunned. And in that moment, the empire changed forever, not by war, not by power, but by the quiet courage of a human who was once invisible. Evan bowed his head gently. Your Majesty. I only did what any father would do. The Emperor placed a hand over his heart. And that is why you are worthy. The triplets, safe and breathing, slept peacefully. The Empire had witnessed a miracle. A miracle no one expected. A miracle made by human hands.